Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial.
So in part 1, that's episode number 749, we looked at some basic functionality of PowerPoint, including adding texts, pictures, videos, messing around with some animations and transitions before finally diving into iPad to look at some basic functionality. In this episode, we're going to extend things a little bit further and have a look at some more advanced techniques, and I can't wait to show you. So let's dive in. So we have opened up our old presentation back from episode number 749. That's PowerPoint for Mac and iOS part 1. And we're going to be taking a bit of a deeper dive into themes for this particular part. So the first thing I want to do is head on up to the File menu and click on New from Template, just to show you a few of the different themes that you can choose from. But we'll be changing our blank presentation theme inside our Food Chains and Food Webs presentation.
That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.